Hello and welcome to Coffee Lovers TV. Joseph here. On the show today, we're going to be enjoying this Congo Kinshasa coffee by Prevail Coffee Roasters. The Prevail is based out of Alabama. They've been around since 2015, and they focus a lot on the farmers and the relationships with coffee, which is really good. This coffee is a really good example of that. So this Congo Kinshasa from Idwiji Island, which is an island on the Congo River. It's this really interesting little backstory to it. So the farmers involved actually in this co-op, it's part of the Good Grounds project. And these farmers are former Congolese rebels, soldiers, who gave up violence in order to work on the farms. That's kind of the goal of the Good Grounds project, is to offer employment, essentially, offer work for people. And that's, unfortunately, part of the large reason that violence and conflict and these sorts of things happens in other countries like this is people just have no other option. They have no work. They have no way to get food, provide for their families if they're even able to have families. So the farmers of these, this is actually is a co-op, so it's a bunch of small farmers doing the work for this coffee. And this indicates that the variety is all Bourbon, which makes sense that this project came in to build these farms and put these people to work. They probably pulled in all the same coffee to work with, which is good. Now, interestingly, on the back of the bag here, Prevail has this kind of range of lighter to darker, which has 5 points from lighter over here to darker over here. And it's on the 4th point up to darker, which, I mean, the coffee, as I was looking at the coffee, and I've had this before, I would call this a light roast. I mean, it's not, there's definitely lighter roasts that exist. It's just maybe it's approaching medium. It's hard to tell just by looking at it. The taste of it it's really developed, but you can still taste like a lot of the characteristics of the origin. So it was just interesting to note this range of lighter to darker, and this is, one more step and you're on the darkest of their range, which I guess if this is Prevail's range of light to dark coffee offerings, then I guess that works out just fine. Kind of a little tangent here. There's just this kind of weird sort of language for describing light, dark, and medium roast in coffee where it's all just entirely subjective. You can talk about the temperature to which the coffee has been taken, but even that, as people have gotten sophisticated with their roasting, even that is not really terribly telling about the kind of coffee experience that you're going to have in the cup. Anyways, I suppose it's a starting point. So this is on the darker end, I suppose, darker end for Prevail. Let's be generous and just call it a fair medium roasted coffee, medium to light perhaps. The tasting notes that they indicate are cocoa, rum raisin, and nutmeg. Not sure what rum raisin tastes like exactly. I mean, I'm familiar with the rum and I'm familiar with the raisin, so I suppose I can combine the two. Is that what you do? We'll just go ahead and brew this up and have a taste. Now, as this is a coffee that I picked up at SCA, I am going to be brewing on the Fellow dripper. As I've indicated in previous videos, the Fellow brews a little bit smoother than other brewers, but it still brings out a lot of clarity of flavor. So I'm just gonna kind of be taking that into account. I say that because it's a little hard to judge like the smoothness of coffee, and there sometimes can be a little bit of characteristic that's maybe not captured with this brewer, but that's okay. We're gonna get a lot of flavor out of this coffee. It's gonna be really good. Let's go ahead and brew it up. Actually, first, since I've been forgetting to do this lately. Wow, there's something about that just digs deep back into memory, and I can't even pull up what it is. Can I say it smells like a southern afternoon in the South? Is that fair? I mean, I know they're from Alabama, so maybe that's kind of programmed into my mind, but gosh, there's something about it that, and I know that description probably doesn't mean anything to you. Or even if southern afternoon in the South means something to you, it might not. So I'm picking up a lot of sweetness and like sort of pulpiness, maybe a little jamminess. It's definitely got that kind of sweetness of a more medium roast. But it's got kind of mellowness to it too. It's not really jabbing at me with one particular aroma. So let's go ahead and brew this up, and then we'll be right back. And we're back. So we're about to enjoy this Congo Kinshasa by Prevail Coffee Roasters. It's got a good sweet coffee smell. Sometimes, especially after the coffee's really hot, it's a little difficult to pick out aroma other than just sweetness. But I think it's always a really good sign when you can just kind of smell the sugary sweetness of a coffee off the aroma. Now it kind of smells like muffins. Let's see what we get. So this coffee has a nice like sugary fruit sweetness. It's interesting because just from the smell, I was kind of thinking it might come off juicy, but it's really not. It's kind of missing, not missing, but it doesn't have like a certain roundedness to it that I would have kind of experienced in what I would call juicy coffees. It's got this interesting, like, complex sweetness to it. I think I can see where the rum raisin would come in. And I'm literally just imagining rum and raisins, and I can kind of see the two. There's this like spiciness kind of floating through it, not like hot, but just like spice, like there's nutmeg on here, which I could definitely see that. You know, it's kind of got almost like a mulled cider sort of taste to it, but there's not like apple. There's no apple in this, and it doesn't have like a bright edge to it either. There isn't a tartness really, except for let me take that back. There is kind of a bright note, but I think raisin brightness is the best explanation because it's more sweet and mellow than it is like berry bright, but it does have a spiky point of brightness somewhere in the middle. But most of it is this kind of sweet, complex fruitiness, but I can't really identify the fruit. As it cools, actually, there's a little bit of tartness that's appearing. Surprisingly, I'm not really seeing cocoa in here. And that might be a factor of the fellow brewer. There might be some layer of richness on the bottom end that would be cocoa that is just kind of getting smoothed out. I can kind of see where it would be. And maybe that's what I was mentioning at the beginning where I said there's this kind of this layer that's not there that would be, and I would call it juicy. But kind of like raisin and spicy is pretty good for this. It's a tasty coffee. It's got good body too. I mean, it's definitely, I think medium roast is a fair assessment for this one, as the sugars have been developed. So there's this good like thick sweetness to it. It's fun trying to kind of dig through memory of taste and aroma to pull something that's relatable, because that's really what this is all about. In terms of me explaining it to you and you kind of getting a sense of what it's like. Really hard to communicate the taste experience of coffee like this. Yeah, it has a lot of like classic sort of coffee characteristics in the deepness and the richness, but it's clean. It's very clean. It's got this kind of fruit sweetness flowing throughout it, but it doesn't taste like explicitly like fruit. It's kind of got sort of raisin and date sort of flavors kind of in there, in this kind of spiciness, a little bit like nutmeg, like I said, like a mulled cider, but it's not like apple. It doesn't have that apple taste, just kind of floating through there. Really, really, really delicious. That's Prevail Coffee Roasters. You can find this coffee on their website, the Congo Kinshasa. Highly recommend picking up a bag. Like I said, good stuff coming out of Congo right now. You'll find the links below the video, along with a link to the fellow dripper if you're curious about that. Please like the video, comment below your thoughts, your questions, and subscribe if you haven't. And thank you for watching, and have a good week.